This is a challenge that was posed to me, and we're gonna see how this plays out. But for this challenge, I had a customer that is I'm gonna use the term that I didn't coin, but I use it frequently. It's called freemium access. It's when you have Power Platform stuff that's using free connectors, things like SharePoint or things in the waffle. Excel, say it with me, everybody. Excel is not a database. SharePoint is not a database. All right. Now, I want to make that perfectly clear. I now work for Microsoft, so I have to be very clear when I say these things. Okay. Thank you to the sponsors. Whoops, too far. Thanks to all the sponsors. If you haven't visited them, please visit them. We'll all be down there soon, I'm sure.
Oh, what?
It is. I just pulled it from the thing. You're right. And look at that 2025. Ta da. I didn't even notice that. I just put it in there like 20 minutes ago. Whoops. Pulled from the old one. Okay. But thanks to all the sponsors that are here, even the old sponsors. This is me. If you want my QR code thing, that'll take you to my link tree. And it's LinkedIn and a couple other things. I don't run it. Actually, I mostly just am there for comedic relief. But I'm on a podcast called Feature Frontier down there where we talk about all of the latest feature drops from Copilot. We dabble on a little bit of Copilot Studio in that podcast, but it's like we just review the monthly drops and what are our thoughts. That's me and Chris Hinch, MVP Chris Hinch, and now also worked at Microsoft, so former MVP, I should say. A little bit about me. I have two dogs, one cat. I have two kids, one wife. And the big joke is she has three kids. Okay, what are we going to cover today? We're going to look at a case study. This was, again, a challenge that was posed to us by a customer, posed to me by a customer. And in this case study, we'll look at kind of what the client requirements were. We want to talk about the proposed approach. We'll do some demos. It says lots of demos, but you'll see there's about like, I don't know, 4 things that we're going to click through. And then why. We want to talk through the why teams and channels with the misspellings, payouts and pitfalls, and Q&A. So the case study, again, freemium was the case, and in a big way, an organization wanted to be able to leverage teams. They wanted applications they were building to deploy in teams. They were heavy SharePoint users. So they had SharePoint document libraries. They had SharePoint as lists that they were using to track and do all kinds of queue management or case management. And along the way, oh, by the way, everything had to be integrated, not just in Teams, but they wanted it presented through Teams, like added, as a tab across the top of all their teams and channels and stuff. What they posed to us was, and all that's feasible. Everything's doable there. That's great. But they were like, I want to give this to the business so that I don't have to have IT involved in all of the way that they're doing these things. Let them have their thing. They can build whatever they want to in Power Platform. They've got all their licenses that they need to from a Power Apps user license to cover them. It wasn't premium use though, right? So we're talking about freemium use cases. And from SDLC, they wanted zero IT involvement. They're like, I don't care. I don't want to be involved. I'm minimizing my IT shop. I don't need to put extra headcounts or brain damage into this process to let them do their own thing. So we said, okay, this is all possible, all feasible. I asked primarily, are you concerned with Teams sprawl? Like, how bad is your team sprawl today? And he said, oh yeah, we have tons of team sprawl. I don't care. Like, it is what it is. The knowledge is there. I can search for it from anywhere. It's secured. I'm not worried about the number of teams that I have out there. Let's rock. So, okay. The proposed approach that we talked through was let's use, I'm going to do that all day. I'll keep tripping on it. Let's establish a team for what the function is, right? And when we think about a team, it's called a team, I guess, for a reason, right? It's think about a basketball team or a football team. You have a team of people. It's what it is. It's a team of people. We're a function. We're all trying trying to do something, right? And underneath that team, you'll have subsections of the team. Let's talk about football team. I've got coaches. I've got players, specialized players for offense, some for defense, some for special teams, for kicking. And when we think about that, Microsoft Teams is structured very similarly when we are using private or when we're using the channel structure. Private channels are the means to take that subsection of the team and isolate them via permissions. So we proposed using a team for whatever initiative it was. We, in this use case that we're going to look at, was an issue tracker. It was their case management thing that they were building out. They wanted to use SharePoint as a data backend. That's great. And present it through teams. Their bigger team was everybody on production. The smaller teams were their dev, their UAT, their integration testing people that they wanted to have as part of the bigger team, the people who knew the application, who knew the content, who knew the use case. They wanted those folks to be in smaller sections for the development job and the testing job. So we used our private channels to do that, which gave us permission isolation. It gave us a SharePoint environment, a SharePoint site for each respective environment, right? One for dev, one for test, one for integration, and one for prod. And then as we look at that private channel, any corresponding lists or libraries as we're creating those would all correlate directly back through whichever environment we plugged the solution into through the environment variables and connection references. Show of hands real quick. Let me go back. Who, when I say environment variables and connection references, who in here is using those and understands what I'm saying? All right, kind of, sort of. Okay. So in Power Platform, I'll show you when we get to the demo, but in Power Platform, you can package all the things that you're going to make in a Power App or Power Automate, Copilot Studio agents. They all package out into solutions. And you can think of that as a business solution made of lots of things, right? As a package this whole thing up as a solution and give it to my business. Those solution packages are promotable into any environment or between tenants even. I could take a solution package for one tenant and go to another tenant. Oftentimes you don't need to. Generally, one tenant is enough for your production use, but you can use, in Power Platform will segment further into environments dedicated for dev and test and prod and all of that. That would align with those package distribution and deployments. I'm not, in this use case that we're going to talk to, there are far better ways to do that than manually exporting and importing for sure. This customer, this company, and especially a lot of customers who are using that freemium use case are doing manual export and import between environments. They'll take that solution package and they'll promote it manually through a change control process. They'll have separation of duties between people in different environments. What's nice about the solution package, though, is it's pluggable into whatever destination environment it's going to. In order for the destination to have the right plumbing at when you install it or you plug it into the destination environment, you need tunnels, you need plugs for that to happen. An environment variable is great in that I can have one setting for one environment that I plugged it into, take the package, install it in the next place, and it goes great. What setting should that be for this destination environment? Where's the data live? Who's going to connect to it? Where am I going? A connection reference to SharePoint is like in Power Automate or Power Apps. When you drop an action on the board and you say, I want to connect to data, those will hard connect with your credential. It bakes in that connection unless you're using solution packages. And then it'll use a connection reference, which is like a tunnel for the user of the application or the user of the Power Automate run to pass their credentials through, and it'll execute in their security context. The connection reference is great in that it's that tunnel for them to use their own security when they run the application. So you're not embedding your permissions or a service account or something into an app. It's actually using their security credentials. And in the light of that security context, it'll also take on any of their purview permission, DLP restrictions, any content layer restrictions that they've got on. Maybe you've got row level security in a Dataverse table. All of that will carry through as long as they're using their security context when you execute an app or automate, all done through the connection reference. Okay, so in this use case, we talked about SharePoint, right? I want to go through the why private channels up top. We do talk to isolation for can you guys read that okay? All right. Isolation for sensitive environments. When you have a team with private channels, it gives you a separate SharePoint site behind that channel. I don't know if you guys knew this or not. Teams runs on SharePoint and Exchange. Those are the two big powerhouses behind it. So every team that you create gets its own SharePoint site. Every private channel has its own SharePoint site as well. and that's how it does the permission management between the teams. Is it's assigning the users actually into the SharePoint security groups behind the scenes to help out with the file and permissions on the SharePoint site and its contents. So we did get the granular permissions. We won there. We've got isolated environments for sensitive function or sensitive data. We won there. It's got some compliance and governance capability built into like teams with channels. You can actually scrape them and scrub them if it's erroneous or you do run away with sprawl. So we won a little bit on that, but they again didn't seem to care in this specific customer use case. And then it's relatively easy automation. You don't need IT to go create a channel. You don't need IT to create a team, usually in most customer environments. You can, especially a runaway environment like this, where they didn't care about sprawl, anybody could create a team and their own channels at any point in time. Oh, it's fast, it's flexible. We were able to crank out, this organization was able to crank out dev test prods, dev prod, dev UAT, dev integration, however they saw fit for whatever their project was, for every single application that they wanted to go through. Process was the same. They could follow it as many times as they wanted to in the business layer where the makers lived. Easy freemium. Okay, I work for Microsoft now, so I got to tell you, SharePoint is not a database. When you want to use a database, use Dataverse. It's great. Costs, but it's great. All right, so they had Power Apps for this use case. It was Power Apps, Power Automate. Yes, Dataverse is better, but we wanted to go to SharePoint for their use case. Specifically on the issue tracker, they also wanted for the case management system. They also wanted the ability that they could skin it really easily at the business users' fingertips without having to even go into Power Apps later from a reporting standpoint. And the SharePoint list view customizers is a fantastic means for that. It's all JSON based. There's no code. It's not real true code. It's just plugging in a bunch of JSON. And they could make buttons and actions to their heart's content on the reporting output of what does it look like on this list? How can I move stuff around and enter my data on the fly in their case management system? So they had views where we built Kanban board style. We took a SharePoint list and turned it into Kanban board style. They had buttons where they were calling off and doing other cloud flow things with logic apps and running runbooks in Azure. Like it was building a full true case management system for them for specific use cases. And SharePoint enabled all of that for them. Okay. And then security and compliance is the last little bit down here I want to talk through. So the native integration with information security and lifecycle through Purview. Defender is also a portion of that too, right? When you're going through Power Platform, Defender will come through and allow for cloud app security to come into play. It'll also allow for your intra conditional access policies can come into play here. So isolating those and targeting to either specific SharePoint host locations where they knew they had sensitive data and they were putting them in structured buckets was a super handy integration there. Worked really well. And then, private channels enforce the restricted memberships, SharePoint permission inheritance, and aligning the organization's compliance. This was it was very surprising that this specific customer, they were a NIST regulated environment, which is surprising to me that they didn't care about team sprawl. They felt that they had the right security controls in place to manage and monitor all of that. Even at their network layer, they were a Palo Alto network, and we're doing a lot of network protocol sniffing for any kind of erroneous data exfiltration. So they felt really safe and comfortable in that zone. I'm a harden and layer guy, so I would say, definitely aligned to whatever regulatory compliance you've got. We fit. I mean, the solutions here, it fits because they had that really strong, robust network layer that they were protected with. But you can leverage the Microsoft tooling to help with all of that too. Okay, demo time. Whoops, no, too far. See, we did it again. Came in really slow. I think it's because of remote desktop. We'll see how this is going to work. Chromebook running Windows 365, as you can see. Roll the dice. All right. I want to go back out of this, and we're going to switch to our live demo. Maybe this one. There we go. Okay. Let's take a look at the app. Ooh, flashy, fancy. I'm not an app pro. My design skills died when I was a teenager. So I, as you can see, I'm a I've got my cool application here. I've got a couple of different screens, right? I've got a submit button. I've got my form. Where did the form come from? This is actually plumbed to the data behind the scenes. This is using a Power Apps solution. Let me take you to the solution because you heard me say in my solution, while looking at the overview, show me the everything piece, the objects. Okay. So when you're using your Power Platform solutions packages, come on, you can do it. You heard me say that I want to use connection references. I want to use environment variables. I want to use things like that. So here's an environment variable. We've got two of them in here. One is a list and one's a site. I want to create an environment variable. I want to say, hey, we're going to use SharePoint as a place. So we're going to store some data. I need it to have a separate SharePoint site, my dev environment. I need one for my test, one for my integration, one for my production environment, right? Those are all the use case we were talking about. They all need separate sites. Where did I get those? If I go and look now at Teams, take a look. Those sites live over here in Teams. They built an issue tracker as their use case. This is the application I want to build. This is my production interface, right? For what I wanted was my production site here under issue tracker. Now the channels, the private channels, they're only available to the people who have that specific role. There's a tester or a developer or a integration tester, etc. And as I look at this, the separate channels behind the scenes, I'm going to go to the shared now, and we're going to click on the button to see the SharePoint site. Wait a minute, that's prod. No, I don't want prod. I want dev. Let's go to dev. There we go. Shared. And open in SharePoint. Ta-da! Here's my SharePoint site with its own restricted permission set of the subset of my team, right? So everybody that's on that team, the players are all there. I went to my dev site and it's delineated differently because it has a different color than the other ones. So, sorry. Right, here it is. My mouse is moving. Sorry. And I will put a different color you'll see here on UAT. Maybe we'll try this one. Check all these out. Anyway, different colors, great. Different data is even better. And as we're pushing through, you'll see that the issue tracker has data behind it, right? One of these may have document libraries. One of these may have SharePoint lists, or I guess just Microsoft lists in there now. But when I plumbed it to the connector in Power Apps solution, I needed the environment variable to define this one in this Power Platform environment that corresponds to my dev site is my dev environment. When I plugged into my prod environment and I installed the solution in a prod environment, I needed to point that installation to the prod site collection with the prod lists and libraries. So how do we do that? That's what we do with this environment variable. When I'm installing the solution, I actually, as I'm looking at the environment variables here, I define what's the site and then what's the lists. So first I define the site collection. Scroll down here. This is of data type as a data source. It's a SharePoint connector that it's going to use to talk. It's a site type, and the site that I chose was the production site. You can see here, the dev for the dev environment. You can see here, I've got lots of dev environments, don't I? This one happens to live in, oh, come on. This one happens to live under the IT issue tracker team, and it's the not subsite, as the peer site collection called IT issue tracker dev that corresponds to the SharePoint site behind the channel. Okay. And then the list is like that, but the list uses the parent, I'm going to say the parent of the site that it cares to, that is bound to in the site environment variable. So now when I look at the list one, you'll see as I scroll down here, it shows the site. When I have to pick the site that it's coming from, it shows the site of the other environment variable here, the IT issue tracker SV list, SV site. And then I get to pick the list that's in that, any of the lists or libraries that are in that. So why would a library matter, right? It's still a list connector, but the library's got to leverage the metadata that's in there, like a table structure for the files that are on there. So think about okay, SharePoint is not a database, but effectively it's like, a file database at that point when you're talking about a document library. and leveraging it in the way that you might for a file database, putting in any file and metadata about the file that you would want to keep track of. Okay, there we go. We've got my app is the third piece here in the solution. You heard me talking about the connection references. I'm just going to blow this away. Let's see. Delete. Come on. You can do it. Right click. Delete. Doesn't like my delete button. All right, cool. Here's my form. I need to add a form back. So let's insert a form. In the form, it's going to ask me to connect it to some data and watch what happens. So I could go directly to the SharePoint list if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So I'm going to say, let's talk to SharePoint. Wow. For this specific use case, talk to SharePoint, even though Dataverse is way better. So I'm going to say, yeah, let's do some SharePoint. Did you see that there's SharePoint and SharePoint embedded? There's both. You can now connect to SharePoint embedded, which is fantastic if you're using SharePoint embedded stuff. Totally different topic. But here, so I've got a SharePoint connector, and it says, you told me you want to connect to SharePoint. What credential do you want to use? This is me. If I hover over this, it says, this is a connection to SharePoint using this person's credentials. You might see service accounts sometimes that you've used in the past, whatever. Doesn't really matter. You pick the one that you want here. And what happens is it's building that connection reference for you in the background that I was mentioning is the tunnel that passed through the security credential. I'm logged in as this Richard Toland guy. So it's passing my security credential through. Because I don't want to actually connect directly to the list. I want to use the connection reference. Over here on the advanced tab, I'm going to pick the environment variable for the one that's listed here. So I need the issue tracker SP site here. And then again, as it shows me all the lists, I could pick directly from the list, but I don't want to do that because when I plug this solution into the destination environment, I want to tell it to go to a different SharePoint site at a different SharePoint list. So I go to the advanced tag and say, use the environment variable here as well for what's the actual list. And I'm going to say connect. Ta-da! Here comes my form. Baby. Yay. All right. Got our form. It's connected. Go somewhere like this. And it looks better. Look how fancy that is. Modern controls. I think that's what happened. Somebody better at designing than me decided that's a better control. They're right. Okay, and then I have a submit button. That still says form 1. Let's make sure the submit button has the right form value. I'm going to push this to the back. The order, send to back. Grab the button. Okay, come on. Button. Yeah, submit form 1. Got it. Check. Okay. So when I package the solution, I'm going to go back to the solution package. Let's say that you built a Power App. Whoops, I didn't start from a solution. All right, that's fine. If you're going to do solutions, you would do new Power App. From here, you say new app. What kind of app do you want? Or a new agent for Copilot Studio agent. What kind of agent do you want? New automation, Cloudflow, custom connectors, data flows, etc. What do you want to do from automation? Dashboards, Power BI reports, all this stuff. If you start from a solution, you go to the new menu. If I forgot to start from a solution, I can go to add existing and go fetch that from elsewhere. Let me say if I built an app someplace outside, I just went to Power Apps and clicked the new button. Or I told Copilot, go build me an application. That's great. If you build it from outside and you grab it, all of its dependencies, be it environment variables or custom connection references or any of the reports that it depends on, all that stuff is pulled into the solution package with it. Copilot Studio agents are great because they come with like 200 things. It's a good example of how to see that happen. When you grab an agent from outside, let me see if I've got one. Agent, I'm going to go grab an existing agent and you'll see what happens. I'm going to dirty up my solution. Probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it. No, I'm not going to do it. Whatever. Add agent. Cool. Here comes an agent. This is the first one. And it's agent 1, agent 2, agent 500, 600. All right. So as this updates, boom, There comes all the stuff, connection references, all the topics, all of the tools that you define for your agent. Same with apps, same with Automate. And when I'm ready, this solution package can be packaged up and distributed to the next environment, either manually or preferably through deployment pipelines. We'll talk about all that stuff in a minute of like the difference of what I would do manually here and how we can do things better in Power Platform. Okay, so for deployment, I would grab my issue tracker solution here. I would export the solution, boom, and as soon as I publish, out goes. Click the publish. It packages everything up. When you click the next button, you'll see that you get a little bit of version control here. So your version update it's a 4-digit subversion control structure. Come on, you can do it. I got a good feeling about this. It's going to happen. Come on. Well, as it's doing that, the package comes out as a zip file. Inside of it is basically a manifest. If you're familiar with SharePoint development of we used to get like the manifest in the WSP packages as all XML driven. It's a real similar construct here. There's YAML files that'll be defined if it's agents. You'll get some XML for like flows and actions that'll be behind all that. We'll click next here. There's also the ability for solutions that you can now pin them to source control. Geez, I didn't realize I was leaning on that. So when using source control, like Azure DevOps, you can integrate directly to Azure DevOps for your source code control, and it'll tear all that stuff apart. So that what's in the zip file, you can go and manually edit if you wanted to in your source control system, like Azure DevOps. You code edit if you're a pro coder and you really want to get crazy in pro code. Okay. So when you're kicking this out, generally, if you're going from a dev environment to another dev environment, a place where you want it to be manually edited, you allow for your application or the things that you built in your solution to be manually edited at any point in time. They want to change a flow or they need to edit the app or something like that. You'll export them as an unmanaged solution. It'll come out this way. If I wanted to go to a place like production where I don't want anybody messing with the application, don't change the thing. Here's your pluggable solution. You tell me when you have bugs, we'll go fix it and they'll run it back through the pipeline. Those will come out as managed solutions. And you'll see there's my 4-digit version number. As I export that, I do get a zip file. It takes a little while. To do it. For good measure, I always run the solution checker on export. That's just so that it can tell me all the things that it sees as wrong, or give me design suggestions on what I've done in the application, what I could do better. It'll bring all that stuff together. Here, I'll go ahead and click it. Why not? Let's click export. Okay. Well, that's a drag. I got a zip file out of this, and I got to take that to the next environment and import that to the next environment, where I would go up here to my dev, and I would click to choose. Let's go UAT. I guess we're going to UAT. Oh, I have integration up there. Doesn't look like we have that solution in this environment yet. So you'll get to see an import process here too. As I bring it into the environment, all those things that are in the solution package are going to go into the environment. You can't bring the solution package into the same environment twice. It's threaded through the environment or through the package ID, and all the stuff that's in it would have conflicting IDs. So generally needed to replicate the same solution more than once in an organization, or for maybe more than once for different organizational subgroups. One for HR, one for IT, one for interns, etc. Then you would give them their own environment and import the solution to that environment separately. So here we go. So it's got our export. Let's do a download real fast. We'll see what happens here. Something went wrong. That's great. That's nice. Something went wrong. Again, try again later. You know what? Fine then. Insert my own. Let's see. I think I have something. Just so you guys can see the process. Let's go here. And we'll go to here. Don't pay attention to my taxes. Downloads. Learning. Management. That's not even one. Hold on. Try this one. Maybe. I don't even think that's a Power Platform solution. We'll try. Ta-da! Advanced settings. Okay. I will say next. I think this one's going to have an environment variable in it. We'll see. There's a connection reference. So this connection reference is saying, again, I'm going to plumb this with your credential for what we're trying to talk to. And then we'll say, oh, see, I don't have an environment variable on this one. Well, for the environment variables that we had, right, we had a site and a list. It would bring those fields up. On a managed solution, it's one time only. You'll only ever get that on the first import of that solution into the environment. And then after that, every time that it imports, it keeps the same setting. So you get to set it one time on the first import of a managed environment solution. Sorry, of a managed solution package, the zip file. When I export it as managed, so I would see those here, and it would say, tell me what site you want to go to now. Tell me what list you want to plug it into on that site for those environment variables. I don't know what this is, but I'm going to import it. Let's try it. I already know where that came from. Looks like some kind of learning. I must have done an app in a day or an agent in a day thing, which are fun. If you haven't done those, do them. They're a blast. That's weird. Maybe because I'm on a different no. I wouldn't. I don't know why it's blocking my download. Strange. Anyway, Cloud VMs, Windows 365. Who knows? So as it imports, it brings in the environment variables, all the connection references. You get all the plumbing. We would have it now plugged into our UAT site, behind the team channel, the private channel. So as I come back over here, then I could pin the app up here as a tab because I love doing this. I'm going to go back to dev, show you on the dev. Right here, we want to add an existing page. Let's go say, great, where is it? What's the URL for that? Let's switch back over to the browser. And in the app itself, we'll grab this. And I want to play the app. Sorry, let's go back to the solution. In dev. Toland dev. Switch. Issue tracker solution. Here's my app. Play the app. Really? Oh, that hurt. All right, let's go grab the app inside the solution. We want its going for its fun URL here. This is cool. There's my fun app. And notice this is different. So this is the original one. I didn't save it when I deleted the thing. I didn't save it, so that's why. But anyway, so I've got this app. I want to grab the URL, and we're going to pin this in dev. Yep. Because the app URL doesn't change when it's pushed in this solution. That will stay the same until you delete the app. It's using the app's identity. So that sticks around in that environment for that app. That's why you can only import it one time. All right. So let's go back over to Teams. We'll throw this on the tab. Ta-da. And at the end of this, I'm going to say also, or being and, hide nav var equal true. Add page. Link my score. Oh, all right, fine. I added the wrong thing. Right on that. I don't want to add that kind of page. I want to add something else as a URL website. Ta-da. Website. What's the URL? Like this. We're going to call this issue tracker dev. Sweet. Post to the channel. Ooh, that's fun. Okay, so when I go to the issue tracker dev, oh, that's nice. Popped you off to a tab. Anyway, yeah, there you go. I told it to open it in a separate tab. That was my bad. When I added it, there was a checkbox on the bottom. My bad. Anyway, but so you can embed the app directly into Teams in that channel tab across that channel. And now every edit that we make to the application will instantly show up right as they render that app every time you publish the application. When I take the solution package and I make a change, I export it and import it to the destination environment again. If it came in as a managed, well, regardless of whether it's managed or not, when I import it the second time, it gets an immediate update on the application and it's already plumbed into the test environment on that dev tab or it would be on this UAT channel. And we just tell the testers, hey, go to the channel, go to the tab and test the application. We push the bug fix. It's already pre-plumbed. They're ready to go. And everybody in their own right, team or sub team by the channel, the private channel, will have already had that configured for them. Okay, good with demo? Questions on demo? No? Yeah.
Care about the app. Why?
Oh, good question. So, conceptually, to repeat the question, why use private channels instead of separate teams? Was the question. Conceptually, what we were doing was we took the notion of a team was for a business function, and then we broke it down into the SDLC underneath that business function. So this issue tracker was, an example, but they had probably 80 applications that they did, and they effectively made a team per application. But they also had some use cases where they were like, HR was a good example, I think, for them. They had an HR team that was like the HR vault, I think they called it application vault or something like that. And they had multiple applications in that HR place across the top. The tabs in the team was multiple applications up there. And then again, it was SDLC underneath that. They had a dev and a test and a prod private channels in there where they were building multiple apps, lots of them, and then deploying them up to the tip top on the tabs on the production or the main channel was all the tabs for all the different applications. They use that more like an app center for HR. So you could, roll it however you like to. Kind of bring your own design model there. That was just what they wanted. Was they had a different app or a different team per application. Yeah, good question.
And there's that many people building that.
Yeah, this was an organization of 60,000 employees or so. I mean, they weren't huge, but 60,000 is a good size. And they were wall to wall. They had given Devin, so they also, we could talk about this too. They were leveraging managed environments and auto routing, which gave basically every user in the ecosystem had their own dev environment, their own Power Platform dev environment. So when they went to make.powerautomate.com or make.powerapps.com, it automatically landed them in their own dev environments through the auto routing, cranked one out if they didn't already have it. That's a feature of the managed platform, managed environments, which did incur premium license for the destination, the target, only in a few use cases. But you don't need a premium license to dev to build. When you get in a dev environment, if you want to build a Copilot Studio agent, all you need is a free Copilot Studio license. You don't need a Power Platform license to do it. You get it through enablement, your freemium enablement with like an E5 or E3. Even the business app SKUs include Power Apps for the freemium use. When you want to go to premium connector like Dataverse or you want to talk to anything external, then it enforces that premium license. So yeah, they were wall to wall makers. And they had a really robust COE that they had put together for both the Center of Excellence and a community of practice with kind of the maker chiefs. They call them chiefs. They were their, it was like this tribal structure. I don't know.
That was the data.
Yeah, in the business, yeah, they were very comfortable. Good question. To repeat the question for the camera. Were they really that comfortable at 60,000 user base using SharePoint? They were almost insistent that it had to be SharePoint for a couple reasons. One, they had stepped into premium and their Dataverse consumption was off the charts, which is the most expensive storage on Microsoft's Fabric today. Anywhere in the ecosystem, Dataverse is the most expensive table storage for good reason, right? Every time you click a new environment, you're getting full-time replicate at the fastest storage possible, and it's always online. Like it almost never goes down. So they had already run up the bill pretty hard on Dataverse and were very Dataverse risk Dataverse averse. Um, so SharePoint was okay. Plus the use case types, they had a really structured like when you want something bigger and better or something for all employees, you come to us. We will build bigger and better places. But for the general use case, they were like, I need this out of IT's hair. I can't deal with this because my organization is getting swamped and I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, yeah, very, and they were a very iterative shop. They, you know, their mantra was fail fast but fall forward, right? Old football adage, and it was like um, really agile kind of ideology throughout the organization at all levels. I mean, they even like they had some interns that came in and just started cranking stuff out, and they were like, "This is amazing. I've never seen innovation at this speed." Because they didn't come and have to ask IT for, hey, can I have some storage or can I have a server? Or can you build me a thing? It was just, kid, go, here's a license, have fun, right? Like do your thing, intern. And they were cranking out amazing stuff, really, really innovative things in Canvas apps, even surprising. Um, and now with code apps, like you can use code apps that went GA recently, which cranks out code apps is like React. It's anything TypeScript. So you can bring Vue.js or React, and it all publishes out via Power App solution. I will say Code Apps it does require a premium SKU. Like if you're going to use Code App and deploy them into Power Platform, any application you would build in React, you can now push and wrap it as a Power App, but it requires a Power App premium SKU to do it, but to use it, not to build it, but to use it. Again, no building, no making requires premium licensure. All entitled licensure, freemium, even you can get in a dev environment. Another fun fact is that dev environments have all connectors. They're not, unless it's specifically DLP locked down via DLP policy in the Power Platform Admin Center. An environment off the shelf from Microsoft, a dev environment, if it's typed as a developer environment, here in the environment settings, go to this. We'll go to the Admin Center and take a look at this. The environment settings, as when they're configured as a developer environment off the shelf from Microsoft, they will have all premium connectors available. You can build with any premium thing you want. You'll get limited throughput. It's not as performant. They're down. They're kind of throttled. But all the things are there that you can build with, and you don't need a license for. So, like, you can get make her crazy and do all kinds of fun things, and then take it to a destination environment where your business goes, great. You use connectors that we didn't think of. Whoops. Oh, now we need to build an environment where you can put that in. The DLP policy is going to allow that connector, that kind of ideology. But yeah, so as a developer environment, whenever they're built for developer, it is the true makerspace. Just go and do, build, be fruitful. I I will call out as well. You know, they this organization, as all should, were using managed environments. They did have managed environments for a lot of their production target environments, and that's a safety net, right? That was really tenfold. The managed environment has like I think 25 features available to it now. Yes, it requires a premium license for the consumption of whatever that thing is. I will say Copilot Studio is the cheese stands alone. It's a little different. It doesn't require premium SKU to put a Copilot Studio agent in a managed environment as a target environment. That's only for apps and automate. So when you're doing Power Apps or you're doing Power Automate stuff in a managed target environment, they need a premium SKU for whatever it is, a premium apps SKU or a premium automate SKU to use the thing that you built to put in that box. But with it, pipelines is a big deal, and because it sucks having to take a zip file and then go from one environment to the next environment to the next environment to the next environment over and over and over and over. And if it was like a spelling change, I gotta do it over and over and over and over again. Code Apps changes that a little bit in that you have a lot of reusable things. It uses the component library construct, but all with React. So you can real time change almost a React element that's a little faster because if it calls from somewhere else. But component library is a real thing too. And this organization
Right.
had already done that, and they did that right. That's the biggest windfall I would say of any place where you have reusable things or you want apps to follow specific guided layout and structure, or have reusable elements in them like buttons that do certain special things. Component library are the way to do that. And now Copilot Studio can also use component library ideology. But they took the component library of all the reusable things. Here's the brand toolkit. Here's the top navigation. Here's the that's accordion or tab accordion thing. You just changed to be what page you want to navigate to in your app. All of those things were reusable, and they put those on every single environment when it cranked out. So when the maker showed up, they were ready to go with all the businesses, brand toolkit and everything's right there at their fingertips. They just cracked it open, said save as new app, go to town, do your thing. And then that package, when it came out, the dependency for the component library, they knew that that was going to be in their destination already. So everywhere that they were deploying to these other environments, they were ready to rock. Um, and they did also have joint environments too. So that's why integration was important to them for integration testing. They had a lot of so with the 60,000 users, makers, go to town, build your things. When they were exporting and importing, they were told, you go to the joint integration environment, make sure you do your regression testing so that you didn't break anybody else's stuff with the same name of a SharePoint connector or a, same name environment variable or something like that to do conflict resolution in a shared space. So their integration environment, their UAT environment, and their production environment was almost the same for everybody. There were a few use cases that were different, right? Like they had the HR application vault that was different. So HR got their own dev test prod stack, but for the general community, makers made in their own environments, and then they exported and brought it into a joint integration or test and UAT environment, and then just plugged in the plumbing when they imported the solution. So they had a minimal number of environments for fielding the solution. I mean, it wasn't environment sprawl. They had team sprawl, and they were totally okay with that, but they wanted to control the environments pretty well.
Man.
Okay, so that was the demo. I mean, yeah, even without me working at Microsoft, I always saw the benefit of the managed environments, and it's powerful. There's a lot of tooling in there. It gets expensive, when you want to build apps and push them out there. But there's a lot of perks to the premium SKU as well that comes with it, and all the things that you can do with managed environments. So use that and use Dataverse because it's a database, not SharePoint. It is. Dataverse is it. It depends on what type of Dataverse, I would say. So, like file storage is ridiculously expensive. Yes. If it's tables, it's actually not. I mean, it doesn't consume fast, right? Like table spaces, and from a performance perspective, when you buy database, not the file storage, but you buy database, um, database capacity is relatively cheap compared to the files. The files is the expensive part, like the most expensive file storage ever in Microsoft's history. Okay, let's go back to the slides and make sure I covered it all. Demo. Okay, payouts and pitfalls. This one may be a bit of an eye chart here. Let me see. We'll make it bigger. So wow, that worked awesome. Is it still thinking about it or? Okay. Yeah, that didn't help either. Super. It's a fun dance. Well, I'll read it to you then. Pitfalls and mitigation. So some of the challenges were the storage limits per license. SharePoint storage is at some point you do run out of capacity for SharePoint storage too. And when they were using it really kind of like FileDB, they ended up having to true up on storage for SharePoint because they ran out of SharePoint storage, which is like maybe the sixth most expensive storage in Microsoft's history. It's also not super cheap, but with it comes all the benefits, right? Like when we talk about the SharePoint storage, the mitigations and from their cost justification was it's Purview, it's Defender, it's conditional access, intra accessible, all the security bells and whistles of the platform for SharePoint as storage. Otherwise, yeah, it's just go out to FileDB somewhere else and stuff it into some container that's not indexed, it's not searched, it's not findable. It's, I can't plug AI into it. So, it wins. But the challenge there, mitigation was we helped them build out some better monitoring so that they could take a look at the storage and downsize or apply dedupe in certain ways. They had some deduplication capability that we built for them. Complexity and management. The challenge they faced: complexity managing multiple site collections. While they didn't care about team sprawl, they did seem to care about their SharePoint sites and how they were. The naming convention was really the care there. They wanted to make sure that as they were going through their naming convention, was adhered to, which I thought was stellar. So, like for the applications themselves, every app that they built of their 80 or whatever apps that they built this way had a very specific naming convention, and they educated the makers in the community to just say, you have to, when you do this for a team, it's got to be an app, but it's going to be for the naming convention, and that really helped them out from a structure perspective, to keep tabs on what that structure looked like. Governance and storage planning. We also helped them with retention. So they were using Purview from a lifecycle, document lifecycle, not just a DLP or content layer restriction. It was using it for labeling and lifecycle as well. And that was a huge win. Helped them out with aging tasks or aging things that they were building in their apps. So they didn't keep a hold of too much information. And then again, deduping stuff. The storage allocation strategy was the low, medium, high tier policies for security and lifecycle stages. Again, remember, I did mention they had a few environments that were really structured, really rigid, and they insisted IT be the ones to build and deploy in these places. Those had different treatment, I would say, than the general populace. But for the general populace, they were also educated on, think about your views when you're building libraries with more than 5,000 files that are going to be in here. How are you going to pull that stuff out? How are you going to show those files or the metadata around those files? Be conscious of that because of the limitations there. So do right sizing and model your view your model, which is always good dev practice anyways. And they actually had, again, a really robust community of practice where they were doing like weekly lunch and learns, and let me show you how I did this. Let me teach you the best way that I've achieved this solution. That was really helpful. And then pre-populated channels. If they had, like if they built Power BI dashboards, the pre-populated things were really common template too. So they started saving out team templates. So they were like, this template comes with a prod, a dev, or prod, UAT integration, and a dev site for you that's pre-plumbed. It's already got the tabs for the things that you might want for data intake and edit on an app. If you're triggering automation, it's got this. It's got a Power BI report that's a dummy one that came with it, and that was all cranked in at delivery with their team template. That was pretty fast and pretty easy to do. Let's see. Go down one. Okay, so in conclusion, so we've got a couple of minutes left. I do want to leave some time for Q&A here, but in conclusion, for this use case that we just examined, private channels plus SharePoint was for this organization secure. It was scalable for backend. Provided a scalable backend for their rapid Power Platform SCLC. It was better when they finally got into pipelines. I feel like that helped them a lot in the IT shop to get it so that their IT shop of like they had 5 for Power Platform for an organization of 60,000, which certainly doable. You can have a team of 5 manage Power Platform environments for 60,000 and all the environments and things that they had. I think they ended up with, when I left, this is a year and a half ago. And I want to say they had about 127 environments. So of all the things that were out there, all the 60,000 makers, to fit them into 127 environments, and a team of 5 was managing basically just the environment structure, the policies, and all the rigor around that. And then they eventually started rolling out pipelines for the personal pipelines. Then personal pipelines still cost that the target has to be a managed environment. So when they were doing their structured places where they're putting the structured apps, the makers can make, and they defined pipelines for those structured managed environments where they're putting the safe ones. And said, makers, make your things, do your thing, and hook it on this pipe because it's going to drop it off at the train station right there in prod. That really helped them out a lot. Again, team of 5, so they weren't having to manually do any import export or do CI/CD pipeline behind the scenes with Azure DevOps. The Power Platform's pipelines worked awesome for that. Let's see, enable structured promotion from prod to dev. Yep. Modicum of governance baked in. I like that modicum. By the time they got to their team templates, it was just cookie cutter for them, and they got naming convention out of it. They got all the things. It was great. And then it doesn't require a tremendous amount of service or infrastructure burden on IT. They didn't even have to ask. Like they just went and did their thing. Here's your user guide. This is how you do it. Here's the community practice where you're going to talk to people. Here's the center of excellence where you're going to monitor all your stuff and take a look at what you're building. And with that strategy, it just rolled out like butter. It was awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Would I say do that again? No. Right. I mean, there's not. I loved the bit about teams because it put it in the fingertips of the business. They weren't fishing or hunting for links and logos and all this stuff all the time. Like it was just all there right in Teams. It kept them in their flow of work. It kept them right where, like at their fingertips. That was great. I don't like the idea of SharePoint storage. Um, I used to. I mean, I think it's great for lightweight data. It's fine for files. It's great for if you're just doing lightweight lists and libraries, but um, it's not Dataverse, and it's nowhere near as performant. And it's not any structured data, right? Like SQL or Oracle or anything else, of size. Um, but it's functional for lightweight stuff. I would also would strongly recommend solutions. Always start in solutions. Like if you're going to make anything, and you're generally going to make it for others to use too, always start with a solution. Go into the solution and then create new from there. Don't go to like make.powerapps.com and say, make me a new app. Go Copilot, make me a new app. Yes, it's great. And that's great for accelerator of like blank slate to boilerplate, use plan all day long, use plan, let it build all the things and then just go pull them into a solution that way. That's fine. That works great. But when you're actually going to go from scratch and you're going to build it yourself, yeah, start in the solution every time so that you can have it ready to go in a package and deploy it. All right, I'm off my soapbox. There you go. That was my Microsoft soapbox. What questions do you have? Nothing. Yeah, good point. I'm jealous of that too. The 5 people that they had, I think so. I was talking to at Microsoft, right? I'm the new guy. I started there in December, and I was talking to our Power Platform admin team. They have a team of 7 that's managing all the Power Platform environments for 260,000 employees or something like that. I'm like, how are you possibly doing that? I mean, I don't even know how many environments we have at Microsoft. That list is long. It's crazy long. And I mean, all the managed pipeline, all the managed environment feature sets just really gives them the power that they can put the control structure around safety net around all the environments, and deployment pipelines really help them from the things that we build internally and deploy to production. There's change management control around it, but like it's like 7 people. And I'm like, that's amazing to me. I've worked in some customers, 125,000 employees, and they've got 2 people that are trying to keep up with all of that and full Power Platform like crazy. So I don't know. I was really jealous, yeah, of their 5 people. They had, but they also, I think from a headcount justification, they were like the poster child for community practice and for center of excellence. I mean, like they really did it exceptionally well. Those 5 people were amazing, and they also did it for other things too. Like they had that community of practice ideology that they implemented for their pro devs too. So that was really, I think they were wearing all their other hats for the 5 people, but yeah, it was good. Cool. Well, thanks for coming. Here's my thank you slide. Ta-da. Let's see if it'll present now. What are you going to present? Do the thing. That's awesome. I love it. Technology is great. Well, yeah, thanks for coming.